My name is Chrystal Hedges, and I'm with the Thrive Oklahoma Employee Wellbeing Program. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, but previously to the job I serve at the state government level, I also did a lot of school health components at my previous job, so I have a lot of experience in that. But today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about navigating life and work and what that looks like. So kind of give you a little tidbit of information of who we are. The Thrive Wellbeing Program is basically created to meet the state employees' health and wellness needs, wherever that is at, for any employees. So we serve state government employees, but we also try to serve education employees as well, because they are state employees as well and sometimes overlooked. And so we provide those opportunities and extend those opportunities to education employees as well. So we serve, there's about 31,000 state employees, and then if you incorporate education employees, it maxes out almost to 100,000, give or take a few numbers. So we are a team of two, but we are definitely a mighty team of two. We try to provide as much information and activities, and we provide a lot of different opportunities and are huge resources to really improve and enhance our overall well-being within the state. So we, like I said, we are a mighty team of two, and surprisingly can get a lot of stuff done and meet a lot of people's needs throughout the state. And so we do that through, we have challenges that we've created, we have programs that we create as well, incorporating a stress management program that we're getting ready to launch this year, and also a work-life balance program. So this presentation is just a snippet of what that program entails. We also coordinate state recreational leagues, mostly through the Oklahoma City area. We're currently working on Tulsa to incorporate opportunities for Tulsa, and then we also some state recreational leagues incorporate bowling and incorporate basketball, incorporating golf. This year we incorporated golf, and then there's some other new opportunities. I think my colleague is working on an archery, and so that's been a popular kind of request from state employees, is being able to create that archery a new opportunity. And so thinking about different opportunities for physical activity. We also provide monthly toolkits that go out, and you can also access those on our website, and I'll show you what that is in a little bit. But those monthly toolkits, we usually have a theme for each toolkit, and it kind of gives you health education specifically over specific topics. We provide lunch and learn presentations, so such as this. We also provide lunch and learn presentations within at state agencies, and then we also offer half-day and full-day trainings. So this actually comes from a full-day training that we provide a lot of state employees, and so we can offer a lot of those different opportunities as well to education and employees as well at their site for their school districts as well. So to kind of give you a focus area, to kind of give you an idea of what type of initiatives, health and wellness initiatives, we like to take the holistic approach with Thrive. So we have 6 different elements that incorporate different parts of our health and well-being that really affect our health and well-being. Most people think of the physical and nutrition aspect of it, but there's actually more aspects. And so we have the purpose part, and that's the professional and career development, professional goals that we have. What is our purpose? How do we, as a person, what does that journey look like for us, and how do we pursue that? So there's initiatives that we partner with other people to provide. There's also the community aspect part, that volunteering aspect. And so there's actually a lot of data coming out saying that volunteering and being active in your community actually can affect our health and wellness outcomes as well. And then there's also the financial well-being aspect, and so that incorporates a lot of different aspects. But financial well-being, providing those opportunities, we partner with several different organizations, including Oklahoma's credit union, which is huge in providing some of those opportunities for state employees. Obviously, the physical that we also incorporate more, not just nutrition and fitness, but thinking about movement as being just moving. What does that look like for people? And really looking at the energy aspect of that. And then there's a social component, the social well-being aspect and that's really can really be instrumental that social support that we gain through health and wellness, and what does that do for our emotional well-being that leads us to that stress management. And so thinking about that and all of those different aspects, so we try to address these aspects with a lot of our initiatives. But our website is open to the public. It's open to anybody. You can find us at thrive.ok.gov, and you can find a lot of those resources, our recreational leagues. I know that my colleague is trying to extend some of those recreational leagues out through to the education employees, through the universities and career techs as well. And so trying to provide that. So if that's an interest to you, please check out our website. You can also, there's a lot of our monthly toolkits are uploaded there, and then we have regular toolkits like a healthy pantry toolkit and how to do a healthy potluck, and different types of toolkits that could be useful for employees at their workplace. And so we also are on social media platforms, and we are on Facebook and Twitter, and we also have a YouTube channel that's a lot of our webinars that we do, we actually upload to as well to that, so people can access those recorded webinars over several different opportunities that we have. Since we do provide services to the entire state, it's hard for people to take off their lunch and access those. So we try to record those and get those access to YouTube as well. So we're definitely out there. So if you have any questions, you can go to our website, and I'll share our email address at the end of this slide deck to kind of tell you a little bit about how to contact us as well. But to kind of give you a little bit roadmap today, we're going to briefly go through some facts about U.S. families and work today, and what does that look like for us. We're going to talk about work-life balance versus work-life integration, and what do those terms mean. We're going to talk about work-life supports. What are some of the supports that organizations can provide or do provide us to help us balance work and life a little bit better. We'll talk about domains of life. Generally, people don't realize when we talk about work-life balance, what domains does that entail? We usually just settle with 2 of them. And then we'll talk about key parts of work-life integration. So when you're talking about work-life balance, what are those key parts that can help you be a little bit more successful? And then we'll kind of end up the presentation a little bit about some key sources of energy. I'm going to briefly, I'll have a lot of information, but I feel like all the information is important. So we'll briefly go through this. If you have any questions, then you can definitely use the chat box throughout the presentation, and hopefully I can answer them at the end as well. So a little bit about some facts about U.S. families and work today. The realities families are facing. So mothers are increasingly the household breadwinners, and fathers are increasingly family caregivers. This has changed over the course of since the 1950s. And so really, when we think about work-life balance, it's not just a mother issue, but it's not a gender issue, but it's really a family issue. And families today are struggling with that. And so really making it, it's definitely the issue for whole families. Women make up nearly half of today's labor force, so more than 40% of mothers are now the sole or primary source of income for the household, and so that is increasing these days. Most children live in households where all parents work, so we live in a day and age that it takes 2 working families that are working, or we have single moms and single dads, or even grandparents raising grandchildren, and so living in a household where all parents work, and so that really makes life a little bit difficult to balance work and life as well. And then there's the elder care as a growing responsibility for families. So most people think of work-life balance being for parents that have children in the home, but actually there's an increasing number with baby boomers increasing as we speak. It is a growing responsibility for families to care for a loved one in elder care, and then also providing, actually taking care of their children as well. And so 16% of Americans provide unpaid care to an elderly relative or a friend each year. And so the majority of people providing the unpaid child care or elder care have jobs with half these working full-time. So most people that are providing this elder care are working, have jobs and that are working. And so this is a huge thing. We like to call, I'm a sandwich generation. They call me a sandwich generation because I have young children, but I also care for my mother-in-law as well that has chronic conditions. So, and then there's many workplaces have not kept up with the needs of families. And so thinking about being the U.S. is one of 3 countries in the world and the only developed country that does not have mandatory paid parental leave policies, which means it's up to the business to offer this important benefit. And so really looking at many workplaces that have not kept up with those needs. The next thing I kind of want to move into is when we think about that, looking at the culture of what work-life balance is. And so when we think of work-life balance, it's usually between 2 choices, this or this. We usually use the term make things work things out. If you just make a lot of trade-offs, that can easily lead us down the path of either job exhaustion, disruption of relationships with our family or friends, or even loss of enjoyment or increased stress. I apologize for coughing. I'm trying to get over some allergies here in this state. So sometimes we just try to balance those scales. Then we can deal with the demands on each side effectively. And so sometimes we feel, actually a lot of the time we feel a sense of failure because we see it as a balancing scale. And usually, how often is that balance scale equal? And it's usually maybe for a minute a day is that balancing schedule is equal and even. And so kind of looking at thinking of work-life balance in a different way. Thinking about work-life integration. And this is basically the new way of thinking about work and life. And that's really that and between choices. What does that look like? We think of it as coordinating or blending. I'm sorry, I apologize. This viewpoint really brings both worlds together and is deeply connected to one another, where there's a relationship between work and life. And so really navigating and charting a course as we find a path through competing demands in life and work. I'm going to take long pauses to drink some water as we go through this. So, like I said, I apologize. And so really thinking about what does navigation look like for work-life balance. And so it's really an art and a science of plotting, ascertaining, or really directing that course. And I say it's an art because there's a lot of creativity that comes to play when it comes to work-life balance. And what does that look like for people? Because it's different. And then there's the science part of it, and that's really the skills on how we really direct our life on that. And so the navigation part, some employees want to compartmentalize and keep work and life separate. And that is a choice, and that is something that, works for some people but doesn't work well for others. And so that's really managing those boundaries. And what does that boundary look like for you and for others as well? And so managing your own boundaries is the navigation part, and that's the art and science of it all. Tracy Brower is a huge researcher. She's the author of Bring Work to Life by Bringing Life to Work. And she really does a lot of work in looking at organizations. And she says that work is part of life. Life should be part of work. And that we should really bring our whole selves to work, or more of ourselves at least. And that, employees really deserve to make a choice on how much to bring. And they may be parts of our lives that we want to keep separate from work, and that's really the navigation part. And so that looks different for some as it does for others, and really being able to provide employees that opportunity to really see what that looks like. And so she works with a lot of different organizations in regards to work-life support. And so a work-life support is basically a support system that an organization can provide their employees that helps manage their life and work. And so there's different types of work-life supports. There's 3 different types, actually. There's the benefits part, which is generally the company-funded options an organization provides. So those are generally the unemployment benefits, the workers' comp, the disability, even the insurance coverage for family members, life insurance opportunities they provide, sick leave, and then also if organizations provide any financial assistance for education or training. And then also this is the section of benefits where retirement benefits are generally what is considered a work-life support. So those are wonderful, great benefits that companies and businesses and organizations can provide their employees to help kind of navigate life and work better. Then there's the policies aspect. And those are basically the principles, the rules, basically the day-to-day operations that employees can access, such as flex time. So being able to flex your time out throughout the day at any time, offering caregiving leave, even offering opportunities for telecommuting, offering any sort of employee counseling or even employee assistance programs. And then some companies even offer legal assistance programs or even opportunities to extend those legal education opportunities as well. And then there's the third aspect of work-life supports that generally a lot of things can really help employees, and these are basically the established patterns for how an organization is managed. And so these are offering those developmental programs for supervisors, or even offering developmental leadership programs to employees, and really allowing employees to either leave early now and then, or in order to meet family obligations, or like I said, being able to even actually utilize the flex time policy that some companies or organizations provide as well. And so really thinking about, this is where a lot of supervisor and managing practices can be very helpful for employees on being able to do work-life balance a little bit better for them. And so when we think of kind of moving from the organizational aspect, we'll kind of move over to the individual aspect of work-life balance. So we're going to kind of look at some domains of life. So generally when people think of work-life balance, they think of work-life balance as their work life and their home life. But there's actually several different domains of life. And so the first one is the work or school domain, and that's really our task, our labor. It's really our livelihood. It's what we like to say. It's usually our paycheck or future paycheck if you're in school. And so that's one that most people are familiar with. And then there's the second domain, which is the other kind of one we're familiar with as well. And that's really the home aspect of life. And that's really, it's our family, or however you define it. And so sometimes our home life doesn't necessarily encompass just the people we live with, but it encompasses the relationships that give meaning to our life. So it's not necessarily just your nuclear family that you think of as that home life, but it really encompasses those close relationships. And then there's the community domain, and that's really our friends, our neighbor, any religious or social groups that we're involved with, really extending that out, that kind of a little bit beyond our home life as a domain. And then there's the self domain. And what I love about this is most of the time we rope our self domain into our home domain. And I like how it separates us out. So when we think of our self domain, it's that mind, our body, our spirit. It's the roles that we play in life, being a wife or a mother, a sibling, a child or a parent, really thinking about that. And incorporates our health as an aspect of ourself, any stressors that we have, values that we want to bring that bring joy to us, any passions that we have or causes that we have. And basically what really sums up this domain really well is the legacy you want to create. Basically, this is the legacy you want to create in regards to yourself. And what does that look like for people? And so thinking about that, Stu Friedman created this domains of life. He was a huge leadership development guru that created this program for Ford Motor Company. And so how can we integrate these 4 domains and really give value to each one of them for us to really accomplish work-life integration that's best for us? And so really thinking about what are those 4 domains. They each have value. One might be heavier than another in regards to value, and even when it comes to our chapter of life, you can see this kind of different shift as well. Today we won't go through this, but generally we do a self-assessment. What does that look like for us in our regular upcoming class? But for today we won't be able to do that. But kind of shifting from those domains, what are the key parts of that integration? So really balancing, what does work-life balance really look like for people? And so there's 4 different key parts, and we'll talk a little bit about, we'll go through a little bit each one of these throughout in the next several slides for the rest of the presentation. But really perspective is really that mindset shift. Like I mentioned, the mindset shift between that work-life balance and thinking about mindset shift of work-life integration. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, but we have the power to really create our own meaning and fulfillment versus waiting for just the right conditions to present themselves to us. And so the next integration portion that we'll talk about is that purpose. And that's really thinking about, we all want to build cathedrals. Instead of just laying bricks, going brick by brick, but we want to know that when we lay a brick, we can see what we're building, and how our work ladders up to something important. We want to know what that brick entails, what's that building upon, as well. So this is really the reason we wake up in the morning. What is that purpose for us? What drives us? What are those personal and professional goals that drive us every day? And what does that look like for us? And then also the next kind of aspect of the integration is that passion. Finding fulfillment involves really living our passion and doing what we love. We serve the world by being our best selves and doing our best at whatever we like to do best. And so what is that? What does finding fulfillment look like? And so sometimes we get so busy checking off the box of all the things we need to complete in a day that we kind of lose sight of that passion sometimes, and that kind of gets our work-life balance kind of out of whack at times. And then there's the 4th key part of integration is people. And so we are a species that requires that connection to another person and that sense of belongingness with others and how our work serves others. Especially being a state employee, this speaks volumes to the work that people do every day. And sometimes what happens is we lose sight of that too as well in the midst of everything. And so fulfillment comes from really feeling connected with people and know how our work serves another person. And those who serve, research basically says those who serve others are happier and more fulfilled. And then how to find a way for our gifts to really serve others and focus on that, of how to contribute, how we contribute what we do every day to other people. And so that's the 4th kind of aspect. And so really what's the key part of this integration is really challenging our perspective, focusing on the bigger picture of our purpose, following our passion, and really serving people. And what does that look like for us? We'll go into mindset shift. And what does that look like? So really thinking about that balance that we normally think of, kind of changing that mindset to really, instead of that scarcity of, oh my gosh, I don't have enough time to get all the things I want to get done, or I'm super overwhelmed, but really making that mindset shift of the abundance shift. And so abundance really is that belief that there's enough to go around, that there's plenty, and that we can find ways to access it. And so sometimes what happens is we get in the survival mode and get kind of stuck in that, and really being able to really kind of pull ourselves up and thinking about certain things as an abundance, as there is enough to go around. and we can find a way to really access that. Because we tend to really think when we're in that scarcity feeling mode, we feel that there's a shortage of time, we have a shortage of energy, and there's even a shortage of resources when it comes to our lives. And so what happens is that's a self-fulfilling prophecy when it comes to work-life balance. And so being able to provide that perspective to really make choices not based on survival, but making choices based on abundance. And really looking at that too as well. Being fulfilled. So fulfill means to really develop the full potential. And so because being fulfilled in life, we're able to develop our full potential of ourselves, and we must make choices for abundance as opposed to making choices through survival. And so really making that mindset shift, especially when we're in the middle of feel like we just can't get what we need to get done, or even the things we want to get done. And so kind of thinking about what does that look like. And so if you look at this graph, it's kind of a 4-pane window is kind of how you can see it. And thinking about really that self-awareness when we think about the work we love and the work that we do, and if there's a disconnect between it too. So sometimes looking at, if you look on the left side, there's the love it more and do it less. And then there's the love it more and do it more. And then down to the far left and the bottom is love it less, do it less. And then the lower right is love it less or do it more. So thinking about the duties, thinking about the things that we do every day. This, when I say work, this doesn't necessarily have to be work that we get paid to do. This is any work that we do throughout the day, especially when it comes to roles and stuff. And so for everyone, there's work we love to do, and then there's work we don't especially love, we just don't especially enjoy. And so thinking about what does that balance look like for us, and that basically any job has a mix of it. And so really looking at what does that look like for us. So really having a good match between when we think of work that we do, and then the person is, and to create that abundance, and how do we create that abundance with us. And so we're kind of looking at, this is a good self-awareness, like where am I at in regards to what I do every day? Is this something that makes me happy? And then part of kind of moving forward with that mindset shift is sometimes we accomplish a lot of things in a day. And sometimes we look at that to-do list and aren't able to really understand what are the things that we're doing. And so one of the things to do to kind of help with the mindset shift is looking at our daily achievements and enjoyments. And so pausing a little bit to really think about achievement. What does an achievement mean? So an achievement is achieving something that was meaningful with and for a friend, a child, or family member. So this is any achievement that we provide or we do for somebody else. And so this could be little, this could be big or small, but really thinking about what are we achieving daily and what does that look like? And then thinking about the enjoyment aspect. So what does our enjoyment look like? And so when we think of enjoyment, it's really that pride in doing that good job, that sense of satisfaction that you have when you get something done. Enjoyment incorporates our well-being. What are we, like that self-care we're doing, any love or affection that we feel from it. It's basically all the things in life that make your heart beat. It's one of the things that you, at the end of the day, you're like, this was good. I enjoyed this. And like I said, this can be something that we overlook a lot of the time. So, we go through life focusing on achievement without enjoyment, or we focus on enjoyment without achievement. And so really taking the time to really look at these key parts of integration together, and these doing this activity. I know a lot of people do gratitude journals, but even doing a daily achievement and enjoyment journal is one way to kind of help balance yourself in regards to that as well. So the goal is to achieve and enjoy every day. So I'll just share with you a little bit about one of my enjoyments of life some days is that 20-minute drive home listening to my music, and before I get home with the kids or picking the kids up from daycare or school, but really looking at the enjoyment of what, what was enjoyable. And sometimes listening to music and just relaxing for my well-being while driving is definitely enjoyment. Achievement some days. I have 4 young kids, so some days my achievement is just getting the kids dressed into school. I mean, that's an achievement in itself. And if you're a parent with young children, that definitely is achievement that we sometimes don't understand or don't take credit for. And so really achieving that. And so the next thing kind of moving on is Tony Schwartz. Huge leadership development professional. Basically says it isn't about time management in the physical sense when we think about work-life balance, but it's really sustaining a person's capacity and energy. Because when we feel we have greater capacity, we feel like it makes us possible to get more done in less time at a higher level of engagement with more sustainability. So we're able to get more stuff done in less time and be able to do it longer. And that's really the goal when we talk about work-life balance. We want to be able to get all the things done accomplished in the day and feel good about it, and not have guilt or anxiety around what we didn't get done. And so really thinking about how can we really create that capacity, create that energy that is needed to really balance our life a little bit better. And so what's interesting about this is demanding capacity. So when you look at your to-do list, and one person, looks at their to-do list and they have 20 things, and another person has 20 things. But when we perceive we have the capacity to meet those demands, we have higher satisfaction with both our work and our family life, and we actually have higher performance in both. So even though we have 20 things on that to-do list, when we perceive that we can get all the things done that we want to get done that day, or at least the important things that we need to get done that day, we actually have an increased satisfaction and a performance. Our list didn't change. It's really how we perceive accomplishing that. And so sometimes even a supervisor or manager or somebody kind of overlooking, does a worker feel capable of handling the tasks before him or her? And so sometimes when a worker doesn't feel capable of handling that, sometimes they're not able to really have better satisfaction or performance because they just don't feel like they're capable of doing it in regards to resources or support or whatever that looks like. And so does a worker feel greater than his or her responsibilities? And this is what happens. Sometimes we kind of fall in that phase of what does that look like, that we feel like we can't get all the things done. And that's where we have that work-life balance kind of imbalance, I should say, of how we feel as well. And so when we perceive we have the capacity, we actually in the end are less stressed and more fulfilled. So our to-do list didn't change, but basically how we perceive the work that we're doing, or the demands, that if we perceive the demands differently, we actually do better and feel less stressed and more fulfilled. So we're kind of talking about what does that capacity look like? How do we create that? How do we do a better job of work-life balance? And so really there's key sources of energy we'll talk about in the next few slides, and what does that look like as well. And so the first capacity, which most people, we overlook sometimes, or we don't really, this is that aspect of physical energy. And it's really to rest and renew through sleep, daytime rest, fitness, and nutrition. And so what does that look like? What is physical energy? How do we really fuel that physical energy? And so exercise is a huge fuel. It is a huge fuel. Exercise is medicine, if you've ever heard that term. Exercise actually can provide us energy throughout the day. And so there's a slide here that really shows a brain that's sitting quietly. And then on the right, it's a brain after a 20-minute walk. And you can see it's lit up even more than when you're sitting. And so we have more, our brain is working better and more efficiently when we incorporate exercise throughout the day. It really boosts our energy. Incorporating exercise regularly, exercise really delivers oxygen and nutrients to our tissues. It helps our cardiovascular system to work more efficiently. And so When your heart and your lung health improve, you have more energy to tackle things. So when your heart's pumping well and your lungs are working well, you actually have more energy. Your body's working better and really boosting that energy as well. Exercise improves our mood. And how it does that is when you exercise, basically the neurotransmitter in your brain, dopamine, is released. And it's the same, it's that reward system. So it's very similar to if you've ever eaten chocolate. You kind of have this flood of like emotion that's like a positive thing for a moment, and you feel like it's a comfort, right? And enjoy it. And so really exercise can really produce and improve our mood and really attack that reward system in our brain. That really is helpful. A regular exercise can basically improve our sleep. And so according to the National Sleep Foundation, more than 3/4 of exercisers say their sleep quality was very good or fairly good in the past 2 weeks compared to non-exercisers. And only 56% of non-exercisers said that. So basically, if you exercise regularly, you actually sleep better. And sleep is so important because it helps restore and rejuvenate. And it actually helps with, the next slide I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then also physical energy. Exercise can help us be fun and social. And so you can incorporate physical activity with friends or even with working meetings, being able to incorporate that in a social setting. And we are more likely to be engaged in exercise or movement if there's a social aspect to it as well. The next fuel of physical energy is sleep and rest. And so sleep is involved in really healing and that repairing of your heart and your blood vessels. It really helps with maintaining a healthy balance of our hormones, especially when it comes to our hormone of feeling hungry or the hormone of feeling full. And it also affects our body and how it reacts to insulin. And sleep is a huge component of this. And then also our immune system relies on sleep to stay healthy. And so if you've ever heard college students getting sick right before finals or right after finals, it's generally because they're not getting enough sleep and they're cramming, and their immune system isn't up to par because of that. And so the optimal sleep, they say, is about between 7 to 9 hours. Some people function really well optimally on 7 hours, and some people optimally rely on 9 hours. So it kind of really depends on kind of what that looks like for you. But what sleep is important is helps our brain work properly by really forming those new pathways to help you learn, remember information, problem solve, pay attention, make decisions, and be creative. And so being in that that kind of element is important when you're especially trying to balance everything, all the balls in the air. And so really that's the time that, sleep definitely can make a huge difference in our work-life balance as well. And then nutrition, having a healthy balance of nutrition, incorporating those complex carbs, whole grains, fruits and vegetables, low-fat dairy, and then lean protein. All the things that we know about nutrition. But there are foods that can, keeping our blood sugar level at a balance throughout the day can make a world of difference when it comes to our physical energy. As opposed to, for instance, if you eat a bunch of cookies or donuts in the morning or throughout the day, your blood sugar is crashing, and that really makes mood swings and energy levels kind of dissipate throughout the day. And so really having a healthy nutrition throughout the day can really help with physical energy. There's the energy balance. There's robbers of energy, and then there's energizers of energy. So things like taking short breaks, just simply staying hydrated. A lot of us don't drink enough water throughout the day, especially even if we're sitting at our desk. Staying hydrated can actually help our energy level. Moving regularly throughout the day, just actually getting out of your chair if you sit a lot, or really even communicating more efficiently, Simple thing of going outside when it's nice and sunny and getting some vitamin D with some sunlight and fresh air. And then really, those are things that can really energize us. Some of the robbers of energy incorporate caffeine. Caffeine can be a good thing, but it can also be a negative thing long-term wise. Because sometimes we drink caffeine throughout the day to keep our energy up, but then in the end, when it comes down to sleep, we can't sleep because of the caffeine. That affects our sleep at night. But things like sugary snacks, high-fat foods, eating too much, especially when you go to lunch, and you have that high-carb diet or whatever, that can be huge difference of that. You have that big sluggish moment after lunch where everyone's like, I'm so tired, I can't keep my eyes open. That is definitely definitely a robber of energy. Prolonged periods of stress or pressure, feeling overwhelmed, or even feeling underutilized. All of those things can really affect our physical energy as well. I'll kind of briefly go through our next emotional energy aspect. And this is really to feel cared for, valued by our feelings of enjoyment, satisfaction, having that sense of safety and trust. And so looking at kind of an emotional quadrant and what that looks like, the top left is really that survival zone. That's where you feel impatient, irritable, you're angry easily, you get frustrated at things, and sometimes this comes off as being defensive, anxious, or worried. And then there's the going over to the burnout zone, and that's the lower left quadrant, and that's really the exhausted, I feel empty, sometimes even having moments of hopelessness. That's the burnout zone that sometimes we experience. And then there's the performance zone, the right side, and that's where we feel challenged, we feel confident, we feel really engaged, we feel good about our performance. And then the emotional, on the other positive part, on the lower side, is that recovery zone. That's where you feel peaceful, relaxed, relieved. And so we allow ourselves to be pulled to that survival zone, or even that burnout zone, by people around us, or even by events that occur over the course of the day. And so we profoundly have the power to influence how we feel. And really the key to our emotional quadrant is to really pulse between the performance zone and the recovery zone. And so sometimes we kind of have that expectation that we should be in the performance zone 100% of the day, all the time, and that's just not feasible. We are human beings. We are not computers meant to be working all day, every day, and be at our best performance. And in order to perform well in that zone, there needs to be time for recovery zone. And what does that look like? And recovery zone is really that renewal zone to really refuel our energy. And that may be different for people. What does recovery zone look like? And so that's where the self-care comes apart. Some of these different sources of energy I'm talking about, having some downtime, having some enjoyment or achievement that you've had, and really allowing that throughout your day to have those recovery zones. And it might be, taking a couple deep breaths and taking like 5 or 10 minutes to yourself, and then getting back to work. It might be something where you read for 10 minutes. It might be going on a walk. It really depends on what that looks like for people, but finding what that looks like for that recovery zone. And so what fuels our emotional energy are positive emotions associated with high performance. So when we have positive emotions, we're around positive emotions, we have a feeling of enjoyment, satisfaction, and that sense of safety and trust. Emotions are contagious. This is the thing, good or bad. And so really leaders, managers, people we're around, coworkers can fuel our energy by even raising our confidence for those that lead us. This is where mindfulness practices really help a huge difference in regards to, like I said, just taking some deep breaths, taking some moments to kind of rejuvenate. And emotional energy is really connected to physical energy quite a bit. And so what does that, and so when you're emotionally energized, you generally are physically energized and vice versa. So they really play a component together and to really address that. And so we'll talk mostly about some boundaries. Part of the emotional quadrant is really setting boundaries, managing our technology. Technology can be utilized for us and can be a good thing, but then it can also be something that manages us. And so that can help, technology can be helpful in work-life balance. It can also hinder as well. Saying no is saying yes. And so sometimes what happens is we say yes to things that we are obligated to do, and really that's saying no to us. And so when you say no to something that's not in your, it's not part of your work-life balance, like part of what you need to do to fill that balance, we're saying, you say no, it's really saying yes to yourself and what's important to you. And so that's a huge boundary that's very difficult at times to play a part, but that can make a world of difference when we talk about work-life balance. Slowing down and being mindful in the hustle and bustle of life. We don't really take the time to think things through. We're so busy trying to get the to-do list completed and really having to slow down, pay attention to what's going on. And when we're able to do this, it relieves our stress. We can unlock creativity and problem-solving skills and really boost our performance. Taking time for relationships. Relationships are important when it comes to work-life balance and even stress management, because those relationships really buffer those circumstances we come in contact with that we call life. And so giving quality relationships and investing in that within coworkers and also with friends in your personal life is very important as well. So making sure to regularly set time aside to really invest in those relationships. And then setting your own boundaries. Your own boundaries are different. One is different for another. And really, what does that look like for you and navigating that for you as well? The mental energy to feel empowered, to set boundaries, and to really focus in an absorbed way. What fuels us is our focus of attention. A lot of people talk about multitasking, but really unitasking, really paying attention to one thing at a time. We actually, research is coming out saying that when we pay attention to one thing at a time and we complete that and move on to the next task, it's actually more productive than trying to multitask with a bunch of different things, because our attention is divided, which means our performance is divided, the same thing. And so it's really like a muscle to really practice that, and what does that look like? And so kind of really doing that is prioritizing our attention. And so sometimes what we do when we first get to work is we either check our email or do the things that are the easiest or quickest to complete. But prioritizing our attention is really doing the most important thing first, whatever that is and however long that takes you. But in the end of the day, the most important thing is you should be doing that first. And then listening to the rhythms of our body. Like I said, we're not computers. We're not meant to be in a performance zone 100%, but power that pause, that emotional quadrant. How do we perform and recover, and really go throughout the day like that? The last kind of energy to kind of close this all out is that spiritual energy. It's really to discover the sense of meaning and purpose in the work that we do. What really fuels this is really serving something beyond ourselves. And we're able to make that connection to give us a level of that meaning, that significance, that real connection to others. Our core needs are met, and those core needs are met being where we feel secure and comfortable. And there's something energizing about knowing what you stand for as really the powerful source of energy, and those intrinsic motivators, what motivates us intrinsically when it comes to our spiritual energy. More energized, and we're more engaged and able to create that demand and capacity where we can actually perform better as well. And so I like to kind of say the things that you do either give you energy or drain you energy. I like to say people, same thing about this too as well with people. So really choosing wisely, and what does that look like throughout your day, and taking time to slow down and choose wisely and what that looks like. And so to kind of finish this up a little bit is the work-life equation of what does that look like is those work-life supports that I talked about, the organizations that you provide those work-life supports, your manager, supervisor, plus the personal work-life management, kind of giving you some ideas today on what does that look like for a person, those managing boundaries, those energizers, the sources of energy, really equals success for individuals and organizations and companies. And really, in the end, it's fulfillment. And really, when we think about work-life balance, fulfillment is the key to really feeling balanced in life, is feeling that balance. And so, kind of open it out. If there's any questions, right here, the last slide is thrive.ok.gov is our website. If you have any questions or have any things that you need help with or want us to provide, you can contact us at thrive@omes.ok.gov. I was looking at the chat box to see no other questions so far coming in, but definitely you can also email us with any questions too. I hope this was very insightful, and I thank you for joining us.